Hello, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the third edition of Montague Island Books. This, for those who are coming for the first time, works very similar to Desert Island Discs, but instead of records, we've got books. But hopefully, you'll find out how it works as we go along. And basically, what we have is we have one author who brings along a guest. And also we have members from our Bookends Book Club that will sometimes come and join us as well. So our main guest tonight was, it's going to be a long one tonight. I've just got that feeling that we might go over the hour. We've got Yorkshire with our author, and we've got Lancashire. Well, I'm from Lancashire. I'm now in Cumbria, but but basically, I think we're going to have quite a lot to talk about. So get a drink, sit back, and enjoy.
I'm ready.
So
yeah, we're ready.
Our guest today was born in Kingston upon Hull. He lives near Leeds, and he's followed the sport of rugby league all his life. His hometown is home team, I should say, is Hull Kingston Rovers. And he's been the editor of a rugby league publication and also writes as a feature writer every Saturday for the Yorkshire Post. He's written several autobiographies on behalf of famous entertainers, including the amazing Tony Christie and the legendary Joe Longthorne, and also actor Bruce Jones. Now, last year saw the release of his first published novel, Tough Season, which had been nominated in the Crime Writers Association's Dagger Awards for 2020. And he's also now released Tough Season in the Sun. Now, he's done rather dig at me here because he has sent me to both books, and I should be holding them up now to show them off to you, but I've not found them yet because I moved just before Christmas, and a lot of my books are still in boxes, and I've got to find them. So I'm looking forward to reading them, but I've just got to locate them.
No, you're not missing much, Joe.
I knew I'd ask you on for the right reason.
Yeah, but anyway, well, now I'm delighted to introduce to the show Chris Berry. Hi, Chris. How you doing?
Now then, Joe. Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. Yeah.
Very good. So, is there anything I've missed that you would like to add about yourself?
Well, I mean, Gary will tell you as well because he knows me too well. But there's also the music side. I play guitar and sing. I have my own band called the Chris Berry Band. I play in sort of either pubs, or I play for festivals or for weddings or whatever.
Put your bookings in now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, get them in now, because like we've just been talking about before this, people are starting to think, well, we need to book our weddings or whatever for a certain time. I took a call just last week for somebody who was looking at, hopefully, if we're out of this by September, maybe, a wedding booking for then. So, but it is a tough time, isn't it? I mean, and like we were saying, for those people on the music side, those people who, unlike me, use that as their primary income. I really feel for them. I mean, mine, it was a decent size income, but it's kind of like my writing for the Yorkshire Post every Saturday, my writing for different magazines, and my writing of books and like can go on. But the music is something that is limited to doing what I can do on my own little Facebook Live program at the moment.
And for anyone that is interested,
what music genre is it?
Well, it's all sorts, really, Andy. We kind, generally speaking, I would say, because of my age as well, you're looking at 70s kind of stuff and 80s kind of stuff. So it's Springsteen, Bryan Adams. It's Stuck in the Middle with You, Steelers Wheel kind of thing. It's Brown Eyed Girl, Van Morrison. But then we'll play stuff like Valerie, not kind of cross between the Amy Winehouse version, but also the original by the Syntons. We'll do Mr. Brightside by the Killers, all those kind of things. So we're very much Gary will tell you, we're very much a band that gets people up and dancing. That's what it's about,
Can I add to that?
Yeah. And basically, if anyone is interested in hearing a bit of Chris, he does regular live shows, but also on the Bookends Book Club Christmas party we had, he also came along and told us a bit about his books, but also sang a song for us as well. So you can check out that recording on YouTube.
Gary was just going to say something, Joe. I don't know whether. Oh, he's gone. Oh no, he's there.
Right, well. No, it's
Didn't like your music,
Andy's gonna say. So what I was going to say with Chris, now as we've introduced you, perhaps you would like to introduce Gary.
Well, here's Gary. Gary's a great mate of mine that's been to see me. Him and his wife, partner Tracy. I've got this place at Easing World, at Hewby near Easing World. I've known Tracy longer than I have Gary. Because Tracy. I was involved with the Hull Daily Mail and an advertising management capacity way back, lots of years ago. And Tracy, I took her on to become an advertising person, and she now runs her own publications over around the York area and has done for a number of years very successfully. And she got together with Gary. And we got together. I got together knowing Gary and Tracy particularly because of the music. That's how we got together. And I've played in their back garden.
Well, you open the festival each year. We have Andy. We have a festival which we raise money for charities in the back garden. We're lucky enough to have quite a big back garden. And Chris, our very good friend, opens a festival each year.
Great.
Yeah.
And he has to open it because he's got a bloody gig on night time to go to, haven't you? So he can never see the nighttime gig.
But both Joe and I are into music, and I've certainly done a blues radio show, and I think Joe might have done, haven't you, Joe?
Yeah, I did, yeah. Yeah, I used to do. Not done it for a couple of years now, but I used to do. Yeah, and a country one as well.
All right, a good one.
Yeah,
nice.
You know, so.
Well, Joe had this album of mine, I think, at one time.
I did, yeah. I played it on the show.
Long Hard Road, which is like an album of all my own songs. You know. So anyway, talking about Gary, right?
Thank you.
You'll have plenty of time to plug your items. Don't worry, Chris.
He's always good at that, isn't
he? Yeah, he's a good salesman, isn't he? He's a good salesman. You know, especially when you're hearing one of his live shows, he's like market trader, aren't you, Chris?
That's it.
Market trader.
I was always taught if you don't push yourself, no bugger else is going to do it for you.
That's true. That's true. So we've had an intro on Gary as well, and I'd just like to say Andy, who's joined us as one of our Bookends members. So a very good evening to you as well, Andy.
Yeah.
Evening.
So feel free at any time to jump in with any questions you've got for either of the guys tonight.
Well, Andy's read the book as well. Both Gary and Andy are both readers of Tough Season and Tough Season of the Sun.
Yeah.
So that's
great. That's wonderful. So first of all, before we start going into the sort of the island side of it and your book choices, etc., perhaps you can tell us a little bit, just a short version, a bit about your book. See, I got that bit.
I know you too well.
Shall I come back in half an hour?
Yeah, do that. Yeah, right.
Go and get a brew and do a bit of toast.
Where do you live, Andy? I'm coming round.
So go on, Chris. Tell us a little bit about your books and about your work, but you've done other things as well.
Very briefly. To be fair, I've been writing right the way from being 12 or 13 years old. I was writing poems and things, and then I got into writing all sorts of other stuff. I'd actually flunked my A-levels as a kid, and I didn't go onto university. I don't think I was that bothered, to be honest, at the time. It wasn't a thing to do necessarily back in the 70s that you went to uni. And I wasn't over bothered about it. But I'd always continue writing. But one of those things, do you know one of those things when you used to have that one careers meeting in your life when you're about 15? Yeah. Where you go into a room and you meet somebody who you will never see before in your life, right? Yeah. And they say to you, they say, all right, Berry,
Get out.
okay, what do you want to do? Right? And I said, journalist, right? And they said, 5 O-levels, 2 A-levels. Well, I ended up first time around with no O-levels, right? I ended up taking and getting English and maths at O-level, right? And I ended up doing A-levels without any O-levels at the time because I was retaking the O-levels, right? And I ended up flunking both my A-levels. I ended up dropping maths because I thought it was a load of rubbish at that point. And I did English and economics, and English was literature. And I quite enjoyed the literature. Arthur Miller, his plays All My Sons and View from Bridge were great.
For the salesman?
Yeah, that's right. Another salesman. Yeah. Shakespeare, couldn't get him in a million years at the time, but I ended up obviously.
So tell us a bit about your books, Chris.
Oh yeah, you did have that. Right? I was leading up to it. But anyway, I'd had this idea about 17, 18 years ago of writing my own novel for the first time. I'd written lots of songs, written lots of other things. I've been writing for the Yorkshire Post, and I thought, have I got it in me to write a full-scale novel? And I started writing one. And I thought originally it was going to be like a boy's own type story, like this wonderful person playing for, and I used rugby league because I come from Hull originally, and Hull KR, I'd supported them all my life, and I thought I could do something with this quite reasonably. Anyway, I got into writing it, wrote it over quite a while. I got to about 2/3 of the way through, and I made this one part, which all writers will go through, where you do something in the story and you think, bang, where do I go from here? I've gone too far, or I've gone, it's too much. And I left it for about 1.5 years or whatever after that. I just couldn't get my head round what needed to happen with it. Also, I didn't have a publisher, and it wasn't like I'd sent the original things out to a few publishers, and had 2 really nice letters back. Nobody who said they were publishing, but a couple of people who said, this is really good and just the kind of thing that I would like to. That's right. So, but then I met this lady as a result of my farming writing, who wrote romantic historical fiction, and I told her about my book. This would have been about maybe 10 years ago. And she said, has it got any sex in it? I said, not really. She said, sex sells. And actually, that struck a chord with me. And I thought, well, I wonder if we could work it this way. So all of a sudden, this book that was started out has been a boy's own story, which I could read to my 2 sons. I've got a daughter as well. Could read to my 2 sons when they're about 7 or 8 years old.
But what did the wife say?
No, since she read it. Anyway, and I totally changed the story. But I was also writing for the Great Northern Books at the time, doing autobiographies by then. And so I then mentioned about doing this, about getting this book published. And they said, yeah, let's have a crack with it. And so that's when, in the last 3 years, 2.5, 3 years, I then put Tough Season properly together with what I'd started with. But because I'd started 17 years ago, I had to update it because I didn't want it backdated. So mobile phones, computers, laptops, all those kind of things needed to be then involved with it. So the book is a premise of, it starts out gritty northern Pennine Club, so that it's not Yorkshire nor Lancashire, because otherwise I'd alienate half of a possible readership for people who are, when you mention rugby league, that's the way it goes. Right?
It is.
And then,
as a Wigan fan, I will say yes.
Absolutely, it's the way it goes, man. And you're Lancastrian guys, Yorkshire. Andy's a Yorkshireman. You're from Leeds, are you?
Yeah, I'm a Leeds. Yeah, I'm just over in Lancashire on missionary work. About last 25 years.
I'm a bit outnumbered tonight, aren't I?
So basically, then I wanted it to be something, and I reckoned I could then turn it. The crime thriller was what then really got to me, because I'd started. I was never an avid reader as a teenager, but the more I got, when we moved over from Hull to Leeds, I really got into reading. like Dick Francis and stuff like that. So Dick Francis and Geoffrey Archer were my two easy read novelists. I went to my local library here in my village in Scholes and got out these books, and then started reading those and got right into them. And then I thought, crime thrillers more than crime in a way. You know, it's more about that page turning bit for me.
The fast pace.
Of making sure that you turn that page over, and that I want to surprise myself as much as I want to surprise somebody who's reading it. You know, I don't know where you get that, but it's kind of like I'm writing something and I'm thinking, if I'm getting bored, or if I'm thinking I'm getting bored, what's that going to be like for a reader? And I want my readers to carry with me, to feel that. And I think that's like, I know that's what, you know, that's what Gary thinks, because that's what he's sort of mentioned as well. There's always something that's going on.
So what does, just give us a brief synopsis of Tough Season then.
It starts with Greg Duggan, my main character.
Hey!
So you've got a fan there.
Because Gary put Greg Duggan is a superhero.
He is, isn't he? Come on.
Yeah. He's developed in that way, isn't he?
He has.
Because what he is he starts off being this player who's always played for his local rugby league team. And then he gets embroiled in lots of things. And he's a bit of an eye for the ladies. So that's what, you know, gets him involved.
So that's how you got the sex in.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, that's right. But by the same token, I think a lot of people in rugby league can see that it's not a rugby league book. It's a book that anybody should be able to get into.
Yep,
of a character like a Bruce Willis Die Hard is what I've got it down as. You know, that kind, or a Rocky Balboa kind of idea, but using rugby league. Go on, Gary.
With using rugby league, without giving anything away, how did the crime bit come into it?
Well, I thought that rugby league has always got different things that it gets involved with that lend themselves to shenanigans, basically. All right, okay? Sport, anyway, lends itself to that. Because you look at the Mike Ashleys of Newcastle United and the other people who take on clubs, and the way in which supporters never actually see those people as being good guys. They just see them there as money kind of people.
Yeah.
And I thought, I can play on that. There's a money background to something. There's a reason why businessmen get involved in things. Yeah. Sometimes it's like a philanthropist sport and they want to be part of it. Sometimes it's the money. And and it's the money side that I go off. Right?
They want more than the actual sport.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they want more, and it's this.
So then you come out with Tough Season in the Sun, which was, when did that come out? Just remind me, Chris.
Tough Season in the Sun came out in December last year.
Yeah,
now,
so
only
December
just
2020.
So it's only just, it's still new, fresh.
So how does that follow on from Tough Season?
Well, what I wanted to do dynamics-wise is I didn't want to get people thinking that everything was going to be northern about it, for one thing, north of England. I wanted to take it away from that. And I wanted to be in rugby league is also, as another way to develop the crime side, has got other dynamics to it as well. If you like, when they started the Toronto team in rugby league. Now, I don't know. I'm not saying that it's kind of what's happened, but money has played its part.
With the French team as well, it's money. It's all money.
Catalans.
Catalan. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it plays its part in that. Whilst at the same time, it allowed me to develop other things in a completely different area. And originally, of course, before COVID, the idea was that book would be out in the summer of last year. And it ended up coming out in December because things just worked out a certain way, the way in which it did.
So what was it already written before COVID?
No, the ideas were there before COVID. I actually finished because I knew that things were changing, and because everything was changing throughout. I didn't actually finish Tough Season in the Sun, the actual writing of it, until I think it's more like August, right? That I finished it last year, right? So that was kind of the original plan had been that I'd finish it by May, and we'd have it out by July for it. So because Tough Season actually came out in the July the previous year as well. So that was the general idea of it. And Tough Season in the Sun allowed me to put it in Lanzarote, in a nice summery place. And I came about that because I love holidaying in Canary Islands. And to be honest, I go out running quite a lot. And I've been running along the promenades and from where we stay at one end of Playa Blanca into the town, and then beyond the town. And I'd seen all these great locations. And there was a gap in between where these hotels are from where we stay. And it's only about a quarter of a mile from where we stay. And there's this big gap in between, which is obviously there for a reason of, making sure that drainage is right or whatever when rains eventually come. But there'll be a reason why it's blank. But I thought, what a stupid place for rugby league to put a rugby league ground, or at least for an idea of that. And I also then worked on, because I work on my crime side, on looking at what the crimes are in an area. And in Lanzarote, one of the problems is that one of the great things about Lanzarote is, don't know whether you know, but it's like they have these UNESCO World Biosphere sites, for plants and for...
I think there's one in Lancashire, isn't there, on the sand dunes for the squirrels and stuff? Yeah.
There's hundreds of them all around the world.
Yeah.
But Lanzarote is the only island in the world which the whole island is part of a UNESCO World Biosphere site. So it means that it has rules that they have to go by. But I, in my research, found that obviously those people who are involved in this again, in the money side of it, were allowed to build hotels in places where they shouldn't have been allowed to build them, right? And Gary's involved in building or that kind of work. He'll know only too well about these kind of things.
Yeah. So basically, if you were obviously with so many different genres in crime, what would you? Is it more business crime or sport crime, or where would you slot it in to tell people?
I think for mine it's thriller adventure, right? The crime is there, and it's there for the different reasons why you have it. But I wouldn't necessarily say it's business crime. It's down to characters at the end of the day, and I use characters. There are characters that you will hate in my books, that you will want to see killed off, right? Yeah. And there are characters who you will want to survive and live and beat the bad guys. Yeah. And that's basically it. That's
generally female then.
Hello to Gary's dog as well. We can't go without mentioning Gary's dog, so hello to the dog. So I'm presuming that the two books follow on with the
fact they do.
That, they do. And
I'm very careful about making sure that they're standalone as well, so that you could read Tough Season in the Sun without having read Tough Season, I think. Yeah. I don't know whether Andy, if you
I agree.
On that, but you could read them both individually. But I want to build this character. And this character is meant to be a trilogy. So I'm on with book 3 at the moment. But already I've got people coming back to tell me that they think there are more legs in Greg Duggan than just 3 books.
So when do we think book 3 will come out?
Well, it's planned to come out already in September/October of this year.
Great.
Because there is a major rugby league event this year. Called
World Cup.
Yeah. And so the next book will be called Tough World. I'm changing it from the tough season thing to keep the tough bit so that it's still got that bit about it, that punch.
And we've been on this for nearly half an hour now, so we're going to have to move on very shortly. But just one more question on your books. Well, on these two particular books, do you self-publish, or have you got? Are you with a publishing company?
I'm with a publishing company called Great Northern Books, who I've been with for several years now. I've written autobiographies for a singer called Joe Longthorne, who was very popular, late 80s, early 90s.
Amazing man,
Yeah, amazing man, and a good friend, as it happens, as well. Tony Christie, who had his out just last year, and also, the year before now, and also Bruce Jones, who played Les Battersby in Coronation Street. But also on top of that, I had a few farming people that I've written books for, and I've got, in total, I've got about 4 books on the go at the moment.
Well, if you get them books to hand, we'll hopefully at the end we'll go through them, and you can give a bit of a plug to your books. We have spent the last half hour doing that, but
let's go on with Montague Books.
We'll come back to it. It could be a long night. We could be here, and Andy might have to go and get another can, I think. But so what we'll do now is we will go on to look at your choices for Montague Island. Now, basically, with Montague Island Books, you get cast away on an island off the coast of Cumbria, which appears in the Curator, one of Mike Craven's, who's also one of their members, one of his books. So that's where the idea sort of came along following reading the Curator. So obviously you can take a number of things with you. One of the things you get to take with you is all the set of paperbacks from Mike Craven's Tilly and Poe series. And as I say, the Curator, the latest one, is based there. So you get to pick 7 books each to take with you, books that have influenced you, books that you enjoy, books that you want to read again, and things like that. So we'll start off with you, Chris, for your first one. What's your first book?
First one is The 39 Steps, right? Okay. Great film. This is Richard Haney's exploits in 5 books by John Buchan. They were written around the 1914, 1918 First World War period. And The 39 Steps, if I don't believe I've watched the film.
It rings a bell. I can't just picture anything from it, but it rings a bell.
It's a brilliant black and white film, right? Okay, 39.
Isn't it famous for a railway scene in Carnforth?
Yes, that's right. Although Brief Encounter was the one for that, I think. More so.
All right.
But 39 Steps stars Robert Donat, he was one of the main 30s actors. But I've got to tell you, the difference is, if you like a thriller book about spies and espionage that are around the sort of World War I time, you cannot get better than the Richard Haney series that John Buchan did. He ends up going around Scotland and the like, and so you get a flavour of that. It is completely different, is the book, to the film. Absolutely, completely different. And the film uses elements of the book in it, but the book is well worth it, and it's just it's a bit like adventure of getting involved in lots of different scrapes that he's got to get through. So that's it. I'll let
it looks like quite a thick book as well, so it'll keep you going for a while.
Well, that one, to be honest, is the complete Richard Haney, because he wrote 5 stories about Richard Haney, and I actually ordered this one through the post. I had the 39 Steps is actually a very short one. It's about 180 pages, but it's well worth getting hold of. I've just actually loaned it to my dad for it. So because I told him read it, because it's different to because we used to love watching the black and white films together, and I've been watching this. Good Night, Mr. Chips, just again.
Great one. Yeah, super. That's good. So we'll go on to Gary now for his first book. What's your first one, Gary?
I've got quite an eclectic mix of things.
Good. That's what we like.
My favourite author, and always has been, is James Herbert.
Yeah.
Horror chiller writer.
Yeah.
And it never ever fails me. Page turner, a bit like Tough Season. All of them.
So which book are you choosing? Which
At
particular
the moment, the book I would choose is called Ash.
one? Great. And do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
He's basically a PI, and he investigates the murders of different people. He locates them on an island in a castle in Scotland, Camrake Castle, and basically finds people that you think are dead living on that castle.
Oh.
Ooh.
That we all think and know as dead actually live on that castle. Under conditions like you won't believe.
Interesting.
And, it's incredible. In fact, it was that good. Tracy had to buy a copy, and we had a race to finish it to the end. The only book I bought twice. I might be buying yours again, Chris.
I'll send you the second one through.
The only book was worth buying twice.
Great.
Gaddafi's one of them, by the way. We all think he's dead, but he's not. He's in the bloody castle in Scotland.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So that's great. That's two quite diverse choices. So what's the second book for you then, Chris?
Second book is the reason for this one as well is Dick Francis, right? Okay.
Oh, I love Dick Francis.
Who was that?
That's Tracy. That's
Hello.
one called. That's one called. You see, this is Joe. This is just to prove to you. Oh, sorry, is Tracy there?
Yes, just saw that.
Hey!
I don't know where the camera is, but I think I've read.
You were better before when they saw you in the shorts, Trace, right?
Are you there? Can you say?
No.
There, we can see you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame. I've got my jammies. Yeah, I've read. No.
Anyway, you carry on, Chris.
Joe, this is just to prove to you, right, that I don't just advertise my own wares. Right, okay? This is Dick Francis Bonecrack. Now, this book here that I've got in my hand is a paperback that I bought whilst I was having a meal in the conservatory in Leeds, which is a little restaurant in Leeds, about a year ago before COVID. And it was the first Dick Francis book I read from my local library. And it was like a few restaurants have the books to one side and you can have a read of them. I started reading it again whilst Pauline and I were having a meal. And I ended up having to buy it because I thought, I've got to read it again now because it's about 20 years since I read it.
And when did that come out? Because that's quite an old book, isn't it?
It's quite an old book. I can say it's 1970s, I think, or whatever. It first came out. But I can tell you the price of it was 35p. Right, okay? And I bought it for £1 bloody 50. Right? Being a Yorkshireman, that seems wrong. But anyway, the reason why I bought that book is because it's like a mafia style Italian father, and his son comes over as the jockey to ride for a stables, where this stables has to have him as their jockey. And this guy who's the main character of Dick Francis, his hero guy, is the son of the racehorse trainer, right? Okay, and he has to take over the racehorse stables, so it gets a bit sort of canny with it as well. It's a really, really good book, and it was a great first. If anybody's looking at a Dick Francis book to read, start with Bonecrack. It's absolutely superb.
Great, wonderful. That's great. And what about you, Gary? What's your second book?
My second book, I said it was eclectic, didn't I?
Yeah.
George Yallop, Beyond Reasonable Doubt. Come on, anyone got? That's a clue. Never
even heard of the author, I must admit.
Was that a film?
I don't know if it was made. Well, certainly the what he's actually writing about was made into a documentary. It was all about Peter Sutcliffe.
Ah, right.
And the Ripper.
Yeah.
And his take on the whole thing and how many mistakes there were. And he could have been caught at such an early stage. And it was, I was growing up and going to Leeds College, a building in late 70s, 80s.
Yeah.
And I just remember it being shut down. Yeah. And we all had to go into this assembly room. and listened to this tape, and the coppers were there, and it was eerie, and it just grabbed me. What the hell was going on?
Yeah.
And it made me get this book.
And who wrote it then?
George Yallop. It was called Beyond Reasonable Doubt.
Was George Yallop one of the officers?
He was one of the officers.
Yeah.
And he puts the series of mistakes that actually happened. And it was so intriguing. And because it was such a poignant time and gripping time, it makes you want to it makes you interested in it. And that opportunity to get to read this book.
Yeah.
And because I was involved in that era, it just grasped me. And it's still to this day.
Well, I've had two involvements that have ended up having an involvement with me understanding more about what happened. The first one is this: Bruce Jones's book, Les Battersby, right? He found one of the Ripper's victims.
Wow.
He was
the body. He found the body.
Yeah, he was in Lancashire. He was in Lancashire at the time.
He did cross the border,
And he was working on an allotment somewhere. I can't remember the lady's name. It's obviously in the book, you know. But the lady who he found, he said, I mean, I won't go through it because it's not good, right? Obviously. But he found her, and that had such an amazing effect on his life, as you'd expect as a result.
I bet.
And the other thing is, I was at Main Road, Manchester City's old ground, when they were doing this rugby union versus rugby league games, Bath versus Wigan. Do you remember those, Joe?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. And you, Andy, yeah. So, and they were doing Bath versus Wigan, and they'd played one down in Bath, and they played the Wigan one at Main Road. And I was lucky enough to be in one of the, you know, that director's boxes kind of thing or whatever for a group. Hospitality, you got it. And I was there, and one of the people that was with us was something to do with Keighley Rugby League Football Club, which is where Peter Schofield, it was that way on. Yeah. Right? And he told us, jaw-dropping moment this, he told us that night, he said, round the table having things to eat as they're bringing them, he said, I actually played chess with Peter Schofield. And we went, oh.
Peter Sutcliffe.
Peter Sutcliffe, yeah.
Peter
Sutcliffe, yeah. So, and he said, and I remember Peter Sutcliffe telling me, how would I commit the perfect murders?
Wow.
And we were kind of like, my God, you know. So, yeah, I mean, I know what you mean.
Chris, I'll just come in there. He was actually a very ordinary bloke.
Yeah.
And I think that's what got him through.
Wasn't he a train spotter?
Sorry, Joe?
Wasn't he a train spotter? Wasn't that how he got...
train spotter. He was a lorry driver between week, came back at weekends. My cousin, Sue, she worked as a bar lady in a pub in Bradford. She knew him as Peter, and she knew what drink he had every time he came back off the lorries.
Yeah.
Well, there's a very interesting book. I can't think of the author now, but it's a very one, and it's a one of his criminal profilers, that was involved in the case. Plus a lot of other cases. He was quite controversial with some of the things he did, and I can't just his name just won't come to me, but. He's done two very interesting books, and with the Yorkshire Ripper, he actually said that, you know, when he did the profile, he said the guy keeps himself to himself. He is probably disabled. He is probably something like a train spotter, and probably uses the railways to travel. You know, the actual tracks to travel between the crimes, and it was spot on. It was just unbelievable. When they did actually get him, it was spot on. Though I will make a note of his name because it won't come to me now, and stick it in the stick it on the Bookends Book Club. You know, but yeah, really, when you've got that local connection as well, like you guys have, it's
right. I actually lived in Leeds during those times, and can remember getting stopped by the police because my my fiance at the time lived in Pudsey, and I was living in sort of East End Parkway. And I can remember going on the Armory bypass regularly, getting stopped by the police because I was a single guy in a car at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah. Crikey. Yeah.
Amazing, isn't it? That's great story, that. So we'll now go on to you, Chris, for your third book.
Sure, it proves that fact is stranger than fiction, isn't it? But anyway, I'm going to go fiction again now, obviously. John Grisham. I love John Grisham.
Yeah.
John Grisham, after Dick Francis, I would have to say is the author I've read most of. Although Harlan Coben and a few others come in there as well now, and Anne Cleeves particularly as well. But John Grisham, The Runaway Jury, would have to be mine. The Runaway Jury was a bit different to the rest because A Time to Kill and the other stories around that time of his early ones are the ones that people normally think of. But I like The Runaway Jury because it's very different, and the guy, it's how the story is focused. It's all about cigarette companies and having a go at how they manipulate things, and therefore taking cigarette companies to court over a period. Not that I've got anything against people who smoke cigarettes, but it's kind of interesting in how it's divided. There was a very good film of The Runaway Jury. I said there was a very good film. I never watched it because it was one of those where I actually felt that the book was brilliant. Yeah. And so I would advise people, a bit like The Firm, John Grisham as well, I'd advise people to read the book rather than...
I think I have read it many, many years ago. It rings a bell, but I can't remember much about it now.
Very good. He comes into the court each time with something in a different place on him, like a newspaper in a certain thing, and it's meant to make a difference to the jury. And the jury has been, whilst the juries in America are meant to be kind of manipulated in a certain way by the different, lawyer groups that decide they have so many strikes and you're out. And he used this beautifully, and he turned it round the other way, that they would happen to be manipulated by this couple in a way that had done it. This, I can't remember if it's husband and wife or just partners, a younger couple who had done this to make sure that this company was brought to bear in the end. Very good book. Well, it
does ring a bell, and it's one of them books that I, to be honest, had forgotten about. But it's one that now makes me think I'm going to have to go and read that again at some point.
Great story. I love stories. And books are about stories, about telling things that engage you, that make you excited. Yeah. And I was excited about what these guys were trying to do, So it was great. Got the dog.
I think Gary's got a bit of competition there, but that's a great book. So what's your number 3, Gary?
Not everyone's book, but autobiography. Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom.
All right.
I don't think I've read that, to be honest.
It can get quite. I've got quite a history with South Africa. I immigrated in the early 80s.
Oh, yeah.
15, 16 years there.
Yeah.
And I went through the back end of apartheid.
Oh.
I saw changes.
I bet.
The day he was released was one of the eeriest days that I've ever witnessed.
Yeah.
Because they were shit scared. They didn't know what to expect at the South African public. They didn't know.
Yeah.
It was eerie, really eerie, but up there ingrained in my head.
Yeah.
And it's just one man's struggles and what he tried to do. We all know what bore you, but it can be a boring read. But I have a lot of stories about the era.
Yeah.
Of the apartheid era and the struggle. Living through it that second time. I mean, I could tell you some horror stories, but anyway.
Yeah.
And of course, we all know what happened. And my next book after this will actually. It's a kick on from that.
Go on, then.
No. We'll come to it. We'll keep everybody in suspense.
I wasn't going to do it. I'll let Chris do his number 4 first.
Keep everyone in suspense. So go on, Chris. What's your number 4?
Number 4 for me would be, I wanted to do something more of a recent one, and I got my wife to buy me the hardback versions of the latest novels by both Anne Cleeves and Kate Rhodes. Now, I won't mention the Kate Rhodes one because I'm still the Anne Cleeves one because I'm still reading that one at the moment. But the Kate Rhodes ones, I don't know whether you know Kate Rhodes, do you?
No, I
Do you know
don't
Kate
know.
Rhodes? Kate Rhodes was already a successful author, poet as well first, and then author. And her books were largely based around London. And I never really read any of those. But I like books that are set on islands, a bit like Anne Cleeves' Shetland series, you know, with Perez as the detective. They're fantastic. I prefer those to the Vera ones in a way. But the Kate Rhodes ones are set on the Scilly Isles.
Oh, lovely.
And I thought, I've never been to the Scilly Isles.
No, I've not.
And I have this vision of what it might be like. You know, like you've got a vision in your head of what things might be like.
Yeah.
Because you have this idea that there's no motorised transport. As kids, that's all we ever heard about the Scilly Isles. But she's done this thing as Kate Rhodes with this character called Ben Kitto. And I've just actually looked tonight, and it's going to be turned into a TV series, which is great.
Is it crime or what
it's
genre?
Crime, yeah. He's
crime.
a DI. He was in London. Something happened. His partner got killed. Police partner got killed in London. He got his head screwed up. Ended up going back to the Scilly Isles where he was born, and then now he's been taken on as like the DI or whatever for the Scilly Isles, basically, because there's only about 2,000 people on the Scilly Isles, but then there's 20,000 people on there when it's summer, right?
I think it's the only place in sort of England, isn't it, or connected to England without lockdown.
Yeah, that's right. It hasn't got any of this lockdown thing going on at the moment, although I don't know whether they've just had one. But she's had now, I think this is the fourth one. I've just finished reading it, called Pulpit Rock, and it's really good. But I would tell people to read Hell Bay, which was the first one, when he ends up coming back to the island and he thinks he's just going to be helping his uncle with you know, mending boats and things like that, and he ends up getting back involved with the police and the like. And it's really good because you got lots of different little islands. There's like a real archipelago of islands and Scilly Isles. And so it makes it kind of quite interesting, really. Yeah. And I love it for the geography of the thing and the fact that it's small communities that you're dealing with as well. And in a way, it's a similar kind of thing. Lanzarote's a bit bigger, but, you know, it's not huge either. And you're dealing with these small community ideas where you can deal with lots of characters and you can develop the characters far more than I feel you can sometimes when you're dealing with a city kind of atmosphere, you know. So,
I agree. It's great.
No, definitely, I'll definitely say to people, if you've not read Kate Rhodes, she is already. I mean, it's not like me, you know. This is like people who are, you know, published, and she's probably selling 25,000, 50,000 copies of her books each time, you know. Kate Rhodes, definitely, if you've not read her, and especially if you like Anne Cleeves, read Kate Rhodes.
Great. Yeah. Good recommendation. So we're all interested to hear, Gary, what's this fourth book then?
Okay, I'll give you a hint when I said the next book kicks on. It was a book by Francois Pinard. Do you remember him?
All right, yeah.
Okay, after the World Cup was won.
Yeah.
Another very, very memory-driven book for me. I was lucky enough to see probably 8 games, including the final, and I was there, and you get carried away in this wave of emotion. Yeah. And ever since then, I cannot stop watching South African sport.
And what's the name? What's the name of the book? What's it called?
I love the Springboks. It's awesome to watch the Springboks, and how they absolutely caned England last year was off the scale.
Yeah,
because they shouldn't, should they? Everyone thought, come on, it's England.
Yeah. And what's the book called, Gary?
Sorry?
What's the book called?
It is just literally. I'll tell you what it is. Which one was it? Rainbow Warrior.
Oh yeah.
As in Rainbow Nation.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
And the final just sticks with me to this day, and probably everyone's, that image with Nelson Mandela. I'll tell you what, I swear down, the country stopped for a week.
Yeah.
Afterwards. They celebrated, the country just stopped. Bugger all got done, apart from beer. It was incredible.
Sounds like a good week.
Was that the film where Invictus came from then as well?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yes.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Great.
And they weren't given a chance because of the All Blacks, obviously.
That's it, yeah.
It's a very tight game.
Wonderful story. In the book
Great
club,
memory.
we tend to get bogged down a bit with crime because we seem to have a lot of fans of crime, but it's great to hear some sort of non-fiction and other genres and stuff coming in as well. So that's great. So what's your book number 5, Chris?
Well, this is a non-crime one as well for you as well, Joe. This is, and I bought this book. I don't know whether people further south will know this. There is a little company called Boys, Boyes, right? Mm-hmm. They have also, they're a little department store, but they're a kind of sort of a down market department store, if you like, for the north of England and the north.
A bit like an old version of Woolies, is it?
Yeah, it's exactly that kind of thing, really. And I bought this book years ago when I was in my probably late teens, early 20s. And I have never seen it since. It's one of the few books I read at the time, and it's called Square One. If anybody is, I can't even tell you what the author's name was, but it was about a band, a bit like my band playing, well, not my band playing, but it's like a band playing when they're all in the 20s and 30s, and they're all, doing the normal band thing of playing the gigs, having the girls, and all that kind of thing that goes on with it as well. And it was and about the bust-ups with the band and how it didn't work out in the end, and they're like, it's called Square One. I don't know who the author is, and you probably saw on Facebook earlier on, I put, if anybody can ever help me out with it, anyway, it would be wonderful to just, a bit like I've got the Dick Francis Bonecrack book again. It might be rubbish.
Well, Ellen Creer, who is on in a couple of weeks, she's into a lot of music and she uses a lot of songs as names for her books. So hopefully she'll listen to this and she might come up with it.
It was set in Derby or Derby area. It was the Midlands area that it was set. And I just remember it just struck a chord with me. And, I wouldn't say that it was the most brilliant book in the world. I wouldn't say whatever, but it's when you want to take with you. When you asked for 7 books, I thought, I'd love to have that back again, just to read it through and see what it's like.
And Kim Nash, who is another of our members, I think she's an author, and she's from, I think, down that kind of Stoke, sort of Derby, that kind of area. So she might know as well. But we'll get our detectives out on that.
I've Googled it, Joe. Don't get me wrong. I've Googled it plenty of times. So look, I'm sure it might be me. It might be my memory that Square One is not even the title. but it's just that's because it was like going back to square one. In terms of the end of the book. In a way, it reminded me a bit of one of my favourite films. So I was like, let me see if I can get it for you. I know it's not going to come.
Well, post it on
Slade in Flame. Do you remember?
Slade? Yes.
Now, Slade were my favourite band in the 70s, early 70s, right? When I was a kid.
Wow.
And Slade in Flame, I went to see the film with my first girlfriend, right? Okay. And we had to leave before the end because she lived in a village outside of Hull, and the last bus to get home. And I never saw the end of the film for years until I bought the DVD.
Slade always reminds me of a kid. I think it was Slade Live, which was a Gatefold album, and it was the first Gatefold album I'd seen.
Was one of the best albums ever. It was nearly my album to take with me, to be honest, as well. But
but we will post. Do the favour when we finish, post it on Bookends and tell us a little bit about it, because I'm sure somebody will know it. I'm sure sure someone will know it. Yeah. So, what is your book number 5 then, Gary?
It's a book by Roger Daltrey.
Oh, lovely.
And it's called simply Thank You, Mr. Kibblewhite.
Right.
What's basically from a humble beginnings. He was a rough little git, I'll tell you now. He was a right rough little bastard. He was always gunning for a scrap. And this Mr. Kibblewhite basically guided him on the straight and narrow.
Was he a teacher?
Was he his teacher? I honestly, whenever you see Roger Daltrey now, he's very humble and just very, very down to earth.
Yeah.
And it just comes across that is exactly, he's been guided along. He could have gone the other way. He's quite insistent on that. He could have easily gone into crime quite easily. In fact, he knows a lot of criminals. But the book is very, very, it's humble. It's what's the word? Influence.
An easy read as well.
Your feelings. Sorry, Andy.
I've read the book as well.
Yeah.
It's very easy read.
It's very easy reading. It's easy because we're all just simple bloody like he is.
That's right.
He just is. He got lucky.
Yeah.
But he don't get carried away with that luck.
Yeah.
And it comes across in his demeanor, comes across in his book, the way he writes. I found it absolutely awesome.
Right. Isn't he a farmer or something like that now, or something?
He certainly dabbles in it.
I think landowner is a better word.
Landowner, yeah. I know he's done something sort of totally different, but I just couldn't remember exactly what it was. But yeah, great choice. And what is your book number 6, Chris?
Well, I've got an autobiography for number 6.
Good.
Right. Number 6 for me has got to be
not one of your own, is it?
No. Norman Wisdom's autobiography.
Oh, right? Wonderful.
Right.
Keep off the grass.
Pardon?
Keep off the grass.
Yeah. From the one where he's the window cleaner. That's up in the world.
I don't think I've ever seen his autobiography. What's it called?
Don't Laugh at Me, right? Don't Laugh at Me. And because you remember, he had the song "Don't Laugh at Me Because I'm a Fool," right?
Yes, it did.
But Norman Wisdom for me was somebody who I grew up with watching as a kid, and who I still see the humour and the fun and the sadness at times as well that he portrayed.
George Formby, I connect a lot between the two of them as well. We connected a lot with George Formby.
Yeah. And I've still got I've got his box set of DVDs here and stuff. And it's a bit like when I watch my films. I love watching the old black and white movies. It reminds me of those days and the like, but it's not a reminder of days. It's more that I just enjoy the bloody things. I just Up in the World, that one about when he's a window cleaner, it's just brilliant. Do you remember when he plays football in it as well?
It's awesome.
He plays football in it, and he gets put in goal, and he's got put this jersey on, and like it's trampled over by the kid, So, and he's got other ones as well where he's in a boxing ring in one of them. Do you remember? Absolutely. Goes 3 rounds, wins £10.
Well, that was the old sort of fairground sort of thing, wasn't it?
That's what it was. And to be fair, his autobiography was absolutely brilliant. He was a kid of about 12 or 13 who ran away from home, right? And he walked, and probably not just walked, but to Cardiff and to South Wales from London.
Wow.
He got on and joined the Merchant Navy, right? He ended up going on boats and like. He learned to box. That's the thing. Things like that you see in the films that he did, he actually did. He learned to play. He plays a lot of instruments in.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
He learned to play those instruments whilst he was on the boats with people as well. His autobiography is absolutely brilliant, and his whole life story I found.
I might get that.
Yeah, sounds interesting. That that's a good one. That one, good choice, and one that I hadn't really. Although I know of him, I'd not really heard of his autobiography. So that's great. Yeah. So, what's your number 6, Gary?
Controversial. John Lyden. No Irish, no blacks, no dogs.
Is that what it's called?
Unbelievably.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
When did that come out? In the 70s?
Absolutely. A seething, antichrist, rebellious little bastard, wasn't it? Yeah. He was. But I tell you what, the punk era, you couldn't help getting on this tidal wave of energy.
Yeah, that's right.
You just couldn't. Andy, did you live through it? You did, probably.
I did, yeah. I remember.
It was only a 3-year spell, but
Yeah.
You just got carried away. And I remember I got my first job, and it was I was a petrol pump attendant.
Yeah.
And I said to boss, I need to go. Can I go early tonight? I want to see Top of the Pops.
Yeah.
He says, no, you little brat, you can't. Anyway, I jacked my job in and ran back home for the 3-minute Pretty Vacant.
Mad, isn't it?
Because it was built up. It was built up to be this mega moment on
It was.
morning papers.
Yeah.
Oh my God! And that guy, I'll tell you something. I'd have him round to a dinner party any day.
Yeah.
He seriously is interesting bloke.
Yeah.
But rebellious. Woo,
But that whole era was fantastic, wasn't it? I mean, I was into Elvis Costello, and I was into the Stranglers and all that lot, and the Jam, which weren't really punk, but came out of that sort of whole era, and it was a brilliant era, just an absolutely superb.
Can I just mention something about Elvis Costello, by the way? His mother died very recently, I think just this week. And if you go on his Facebook page, he's done a beautiful, absolutely beautiful obituary and celebration of his mother's life. So I'd recommend anyone just go on Facebook, look for Elvis Costello, and just read that, because it's really beautiful.
I read it. I've got every album he's ever done, and I've read that.
Genius.
Yeah.
But like you said, Sex Pistols, John Lyden, great.
Yeah, and John Lyden was a very an image. He was like a trendsetter, I suppose you'd call it. Really, he was an image. It was like he was building a brand in a way, wasn't he?
Anti-establishment brand. Yeah, that's what he was building.
Yeah.
And we all got carried away with it.
Funnily enough, Gary, we never actually did frigging in the rigging in our set.
Hey, there's time yet.
Yeah. Post lockdown.
I might do it on a Facebook live show,
That'll open a few eyes, won't it? Yeah, when you start with that.
Wow.
But that's a great one. So I think that was number 6. So we're now on to the last book. So what would yours be, Chris?
Well, this is a split decision, really, and it was either going to be because they both actually go back in time for me to either when I was sort of late teens, 18, 19, which, if you remember, there was a certain sort of type of film coming on at certain cinemas at the time as well. Or alternately, it goes back to the first one I ever really properly read and enjoyed, and I'll go with that one. And you can ask me about the other one if you want, but the last one is Black Beauty. I have to say, because it is, whether it's a child's book, whether it's an adult's book, it is a beautiful story of this horse right the way through its life, and I just found it very touching. I like to cry. I would say I like to cry. I enjoy the emotion of where books take me. And Black Beauty, I don't know, you can't beat it in one sense. It really is, one of those books. So I'm going to choose that definitely as number one.
Great. Nice one, that one. Yeah, great one to end on, that one. And what about yourself, Gary? What's your last book?
The 7th one is it's got to be my favourite comedian of all time, and Billy Connolly.
Yeah.
And of course,
I don't think there is a better storyteller in life. I just don't.
And he's done some great shows on music as well, hasn't he?
Oh,
some great
what an intelligent man.
Yeah.
What an incredible. And the one I choose was, I think, Tall Tales and Wee Stories, it was called.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you read it, it's just full of belly laughs, just full of chuckle. And I saw a program the other day. He's living now in Florida, and he's in quiet retirement.
Hasn't he got Alzheimer's or something like
Parkinson's?
Or Parkinson's, yeah.
And he's just chose to live his life fishing off his little jetty. He's rounded up his family. He's got them houses basically in the same street. Let's call it a street, precinct, whatever you call, just to see out his final days. Take my hat off to Geezer. He's absolutely phenomenal man.
Yeah, brilliant.
And like I say, full of belly laughs. So, like I say, I'm quite an eclectic choice. It's come round to comedy now.
You both have, you both got some really great different choices, not all sort of stuck to one genre. So you've got you don't keep yourself busy while you're on Montague Island, anyway, aren't you?
Oh, I gotta do that. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So now this, I think, based on your choices and what I know about you, I think this next bit is going to be quite interesting. It may go on. We're already over an hour, but I think this next one might go on quite a while. So it's your what it's on Montague Island. You've only got limited power, we believe. There's only about an hour a day, so you would be able to play a CD. But which CD would you take with you if you could only take one? First of all, you, Chris.
I mean, for somebody who plays music, this is a very difficult one to actually pin down for a one, right? Okay. So here's the thought process before it, which I won't take up too much of your time. If it's something where people are wanting something with an ambience, which is a bit different, which people might not have heard this album as much. Van Morrison had an album out called Inarticulate Speech of the Heart.
Yeah.
Right. And it had like beautiful, almost Irish lilting sort of instrumentals, as well as the actual, his dialogue and his singing as well. And I always do Brown Eyed Girl when I'm in my concerts, and I love Van Morrison for all of the other stuff.
Me too.
He had a great thing called Throwing the Punches, an album out a couple of years ago 2 years ago, which was a brilliant album, with all sort of bluesy kind of things. But Inarticulate Speech of the Heart is vastly different to anything else and would be something that you could just hear and just enjoy. It goes something like, I won't do it now because it won't come right. But that would be as an ambient thing. Elvis Costello, his very first album, My Aim Is True, was brilliant. It filled me with all of the angst of youth about not getting the girl or getting the girl or not doing this or what you needed to do. And there's things, and it had songs like Blame It on Cain, which were brilliant. There's one called Mystery Dance on it, which is brilliant. And Mystery Dance is all about whether or not you can do it or not when you're with somebody. It's a mystery dance because it's your first time, and it was a brilliant idea. Yeah. It's a brilliant idea.
Well, I'm going to be very ruthless though and ask you to pick just the one.
Yes.
Well, before that, Slade Alive would have to be in that as well. But what I decided
more. I'm asking you
what I decided to choose was what Pauline, my wife, bought me for Christmas that I asked her for, that I'd seen on television. The Eagles playing live in LA about 2 or 3 years ago when they had 6 guys at the front.
Yep.
Unfortunately, they lost
Glenn Fry.
Yep. But they had Glenn Fry's son.
Yeah, Deacon.
Yep. Deacon. And it's a 4. And she got me because I didn't know what I was asking her for, really. I said, I'd love that album. Turns out it's a 4 LP box set. And I thought, well, that'll keep me going.
Keep going for a while.
And
it was on telly on Sky Arts, Chris.
You what?
The whole concert was on Sky Arts.
That's where we watched it. That's where we watched it before Christmas. Man. It's been shown again. It is the most brilliant Eagles concert ever. Right. And it is, super.
So you're forgetting the Van Morrison, you're forgetting the Elvis Costello, and
you're going to take the Eagles. The Eagles can last me longer. That's all.
Yeah.
Great choices. All 3 of them I like, but I'm especially a big fan of Van Morrison.
Yeah.
But great choices. So what about you, Gary? What would you take in a CD?
A bit more rockier. I'm a bit of a rock fan.
You are right.
I'm gonna say 3 that, like Christy, because you said 3. And then I'll pick one. Then I'll pick one.
Go on.
First one, Canadian Trio. There's the clue.
Canadian Trio.
Come on, Chris. Canadian.
April Wine.
Rush.
Oh, Rush. Yeah, Rush.
First album, 2112.
2012.
Absolutely
Yeah,
mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Absolutely mind-boggling.
It's brilliant. Yeah.
So I could easily go for Slade, quite easily.
Yeah. Me too.
Absolutely amazing band. My only regret, they never saw them.
I saw them at Hull City Hall.
Oh my Lord!
In 1981.
Whoa!
Absolutely, they were the loudest band I've ever heard.
I've got a friend who's seen them 5 times. He says they're just absolutely deafening.
They were mind blowing.
I bet they were deafening. Yeah.
The second choice would probably be, and it sticks with me. Anytime I put it on, it's the same. Back in Black, AC/DC.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say AC/DC. Because you
It sounds fresh. Every 40 years on, it just sounds fresh. Every time I put it on.
Great.
But the album, my choice, is Rainbow Rising.
All right, yeah.
There's one for you.
Judas Priest, is it?
Five unbelievable musicians just knitting together for 38 minutes, and you'd listen to it. My favorite.
You can tell you've listened to that along many times if you know exactly how many minutes it lasts.
That would just be on. That would just be on repeat on this desert island.
Yeah.
Well, you only get an hour's electric, so you can play it once a day.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my choice. Rainbow Rising. All the time.
Yeah.
Great, very interesting choices. So the next thing is a DVD. Now, again, it can be music or it can be a film or whatever. So what would your choice, Chris, be for a DVD to take?
Okay, so the Runners and Riders.
Why do you know
the Runners and Riders were Die Hard, all of them, right? 39 Steps, right? The Producers, Zero Mestel and Gene Wilder, which is with Hitler, with Springtime for Hitler in it, right? Okay. Oh, Mr. Porter, Will Hay.
Wow.
But the winner, black and white, again for me, is got to be It's a Wonderful Life.
Wow.
James Stewart. Because it makes me cry every time I watch it.
Every Christmas.
It's Andy, I'll watch it at least all. It's a Wonderful Life, Oh, Mr. Porter, Goodbye, Mr. Chips, 39 Steps, and Slade in Flame. I will watch maybe 2 or 3 or 4 times a year. I'll have them on in the background.
Yeah.
Right. Because the good wallpaper stuff as well, because I know what's coming.
Yeah.
But It's a Wonderful Life, absolutely, definitely, is the. It's just everything that we should be, in a way, in life. If we were all nice.
Great.
Wow.
Wonderful. Yeah, good choice. And nice to have an old one, because a lot of people pick like modern films, and nice to have an old one. What about you, Gary?
My film would have to be The Great Escape.
Oh, lovely, great film.
Like Chris, that is a movie.
What was that? Was that 60s or 70s?
60s.
60s.
Yeah.
Steve McQueen, wasn't it?
If
on the motorbike.
Yeah, if you read the actors list, it's
everybody in it.
It's amazing. Everyone who was something played a part in that. It was incredible, and I like truth as well, and it obviously was based on truth. I like watching something that actually happened.
It's where Gordon Jackson gives the game away, isn't it?
Oh man,
where the German asked him in English.
Oh God,
getting onto the train, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's my film. Am I allowed to say a DVD series now?
You can pick one. You can tell us. You can tell us, but you've got to pick one.
The only reason I would pick this above The Great Escape, because it would give me something like 18 hours entertainment. and it's a series called Queen of the South.
All right, yeah.
Absolutely.
What is it?
It's all about drug lords of Mexico.
All right, okay.
Based on truth, and it has you guessing who at the end of the 18 hours.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it's even more than that. I think it's in the 20s. Who at the end of the day is going to be Queen of the South?
Right. Yeah.
And it's on Netflix.
Yeah.
You will get hooked.
Great. Yeah.
So I think because of that reason, because of the longevity of it, because I get bored on an island. I would actually go there.
Yeah, just a thing for you as well, because I've watched a couple of things this last week that I don't normally watch a great deal of films, but you're talking about the real and sort of, you know, real stories. There's a couple of great ones about at the moment. There's one, and they're both on Amazon Prime, if you've got Amazon Prime. One is called The Dig.
The Dig.
The Dig, which is really good. And the other one is called The Green Book, which has got a musical connection as well. So you will probably both enjoy that, because it's got a music. And somebody mentioned it on Facebook, and I watched them both. And I say I'm not normally a film person, but I watched them because, you know, and they're both well worth watching, and as I say, they're both based on true stories.
Wow.
You know, so that's great. Now, the next thing we get on to is food or a meal. But before we do that, I just want Chris to turn round and just show us his collection of Scotch whiskies.
That. You ready? Here we go.
Now that is a collection. Now, what's your favourite of them? Oh, more.
So I've got to tell you that my all-time favourites before were Dalwhinnie and Highland Park, right? Okay, because they're so smooth. In recent times, Pauline and I went down to Campbelltown, and Glen Scotia is really good, right? Okay, also very nice and smooth. But the top one at the moment, it's covered by a picture of my dad, is this one. It's called Isle of Rassay.
Yeah, I've seen you having a glass of that on one of your videos.
Rassay is just off the Isle of Skye.
Wow.
And when it was my 60th, which was a year and a half ago, I took my family on a malt whiskey tour of Scotland. Right? I booked 4 different venues around Scotland for it. We went near Edinburgh for the first one. Then we went over to where was it now? Near Loch Ness, near that way on the canal that's nearby it. And we went on a boat for one night. They were all a bit bemused when they first saw it, but then realised it was pretty good. And there was a bar on a boat next to it.
Let's see the bottle, Chris. It looks a nice bottle. Let's see the bottle.
There's the bottle, right? Which is beautiful, right? Okay. The people who are putting this together have obviously got some good cash, right? Okay. But what got me was got to the Isle of Skye and went into this pub that was next door to where we were stopping. Uncannily, all the places I'd booked were next door to pubs.
Hey.
Coincidence or what? Amazing. Anyhow, and we tried what was there, like malt whiskies, they start off with like this. This was what Rassay started off with, one called While We Wait, which basically tells you it's one before they actually do it on the island, because they haven't got everything together. But they're trying to do it like they would do once it's on the island. So we tried this While We Wait in the bar, and it was beautiful. I've just poured myself one, right?
Cheers.
Cheers. You know, like it's when you get an Islay malt, you hear that they're peaty.
Yeah.
Well, this is kind of peaty, but more smoky than peaty, but still with the smoothness of a Highland Park or a Dalwhinnie. And Rassay is definitely one to try. Yeah, it will cost you a little bit of money at the moment, because obviously they're just getting started on it, and the people that are behind it have got a bit of money anyway in the first place.
Yeah.
So
nice enough to treat yourself for a special birthday.
Definitely well worth it. And if you can get a hold of that anywhere While We Wait, it'll be a little bit less expensive. And if you can get that online anywhere, get it.
I'm sure you will be able to, yeah. That's great.
Beautiful.
So that was just an aside, because as I say, I know I've seen some of your live things, and you always tell us what whiskey you're having. I'm on the gin tonight. I'm on the pink gin. But anyway, getting back to the main thing. So another thing you can take to the island with you is a food or meal. So what would you, or it could be, it could be a drink. So what would you choose, Chris?
I'll be quick on this. It will definitely be malt whiskey. But if I had food, it would either be fish and chips, because I'm a good Yorkshire lad, or it would be my ribeye or rump steaks from Tancred Field Farm Shop, Dean Huller's place at Wixley near Greenhammerton. It's from Lincoln Red Cattle, and it is absolutely beautiful meat.
Great.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Good one. Good choice. And what about you, Gary?
Well, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but I couldn't go anywhere without this little mate. Panda, come here. Come here. Come say hello. Panda.
Hello, Panda. Panda.
Panda.
Panda.
What is it? Come here.
Yes, Panda, we can get her. She's on.
There you are. I couldn't do anything without this lad. Good fun. Keeps me entertained. Keeps me. Hey, don't turn your face. Not allowed to do that. Hey.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
So that's my choice, my dog.
No, it's the food.
No, you said it was a luxury item.
No, that's next.
Is that next? Oh, it's food.
We're all going to eat Panda.
No, you showed who's listening, doesn't it? Eh? We're doing it.
You get entertainment here, don't you?
That was brilliant, Gary.
It was.
I wonder why you weren't laughing.
I was thinking he's not reading the dog.
We're not in China, you know.
So what food?
Right, my favourite food.
Yeah,
Sure, Chris.
food or meal or drink
Food
or
or meal. Well, it's got to be a really, really good curry.
Right.
Proper good curry.
homemade or?
Oh, definitely. I'm pretty good curry maker.
Yeah.
I might have to invite over Chris.
Yeah,
Joe,
nice,
Andy.
Nice one.
For a curry night.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
No, seriously, a good curry always ticks the box for me.
Good
brilliant.
stuff. Yeah.
And I don't do kormas because that ain't a curry.
Right.
Good stuff. So that's great.
Yeah,
So
Tracy made me a curry tonight. I've got to tell you that one.
great.
Right.
Well done.
Well, brownie point there.
Yeah,
you
your
go.
brownie point. Yeah, that's it. So you've got all your CDs and your books and your DVDs and your food. So we come to the last one now. We already know what Gary's taking.
Is it? Yeah. Can I guess? Is it luxury item?
Nice one there, Andy.
Oh God.
So what? We'll come back to Gary on his luxury item. But what's yours, Chris?
I've got to take this, haven't I? Right.
I had a feeling it would be.
I mean,
Yeah.
if I was going to say one thing, I mean, it's different. You can say foods and all sorts, but this is probably the one thing on top of anything else that I would take.
I
Because
think your wife was hoping you'd say you'd take her, Chris.
Oh yeah, you said thing rather than person. So that's how I've got out of jail.
That well.
And Gary, you said you'd take your dog.
I'd have to take my dog. He's my best buddy.
Great.
No, Chris has got the guitar.
Yeah.
Come here, Panda. And I've got my little mate here.
It can't be Tracy or Pauline.
What's that? Hello. Look, there you are.
There
Brilliant.
you are, Panda.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Fame at last.
Hey.
Fame
Am I
at
allowed
last.
am I allowed to take him, Joe?
Yeah, you're allowed. Yeah, it's a luxury item. So yeah, the thing is, you've got to find
Fuck
food
off.
for him as well. So.
You can always eat him. You can always eat him as well, Gary.
For a curry. Oh,
Oh
never
dear.
lived that one down, will
I think we've finished that on a good point there, but we'll. So many thanks to you both for explaining all that. I'd just like to ask Andy, because obviously Andy's not had much input. He's come as one of our one of our book club members. But would you have any questions for Chris or Gary, Andy?
No, can I just say how much have I enjoyed it? I mean, there's a lot of things I can relate to, particularly, as a Leeds lad, you were talking about the Ripper, etc. Quite a few of the books you've mentioned I've read and enjoyed. And you can't beat reading and music as a pastime.
Yeah, cheers, Andy.
Great.
Yeah.
So
Great
thanks
that
for
you've been
that.
here.
Thanks for that, Andy. So Chris, do you want to just give us, for people who maybe come late or miss the sort of start of it, when they're watching, because this will obviously be going up on YouTube tomorrow, and on the Bookends Book Club. Is there anything do you want to just sort of give us a recap on your books? Just a quick recap, and if you've got a website, or how people can get hold of you, and if you do any sort of signed, which I know you do, signed books and things like that.
I'll make it short. Tough Season and Tough Season in the Sun are the two main sort of books that I've got out at the moment that are crime thrillers and the like that people would be interested in. I think that are watching this. If they are interested in some of my sort of back catalogue things, they're the kind of things I've written before about Joe Longthorne and Tony Christie as well.
Can I ask you a question? How did you get involved with them, with Tony Christie and Joe Longthorne? Is it through doing your own gigs, or how did that come about?
What happened was I went freelance about 12, nearly 13 years ago now. I ran my own farming magazines for that I'd sold to the Yorkshire Post some years before. So I was back with the Yorkshire Post, who I'd been with years before. And then when I went freelance, one of the things I wanted to do in terms of my writing was write about famous Yorkshiremen and famous Yorkshiremen involved in entertainment. And one of the guys who I really wanted to write about was Joe, because Joe is from Hull, like I'm from Hull. Joe was a fantastic entertainer.
I've got to add this, but didn't he come over to Lancashire?
You did? He lived in Blackpool. Ended up living in Blackpool, but that it doesn't really matter whichever way. But the fact of the matter is, he's one of these guys who, if you never saw him live, you should have seen him live, so far as I'm concerned. He was somebody who lit up a stage, somebody who, when he went on, if you knew him as a person outside, as I ended up doing, then you saw what he was like as this shuffling, not bumbling, but shuffling sort of character beforehand, who really wasn't anything when he was on stage. And then the minute, like a lot of people say about people who are on stage, the second that he hit that stage, it was pow. And it was like completely different, character. And he had the most amazing, old style voice for what people would expect today, right? But he was brilliant at entertaining an audience. And, that's what really attracted me.
He was a proper entertainer, an old-fashioned entertainer.
Indeed. And when I went over to see him in Blackpool, that's where I went to meet him. The first thing I noticed when he came into the room, because I'd gone into his house in Blackpool, and I was waiting for him to come downstairs. And he came downstairs in a bit like that old Hollywood style, in the sense that he had like, not a smoking jacket, but, like the old like robe on coming in. But the first thing that I saw was that he was a lot smaller than I expected. He was something about 5'8" or something like that. And I was kind of like thinking, you see these guys on television, like he'd had his big TV show in the sort of between 88 and 91, he had 15 million viewers on a Saturday night. He was bigger than Ant and Dec at the time,
Was he a comedian as well then, Chris?
Yeah, because very much so,
right.
Gary. Because
sorry for ignorance, but
he was an all-round entertainer, wasn't he? He was a storyteller, he was a comedian, he was a singer.
Wow.
He did what he used to call takeoffs of people, which doing of them, but of singers. So he sang as them.
Oh wow!
So he was doing Shirley Bassey, Tom Jones, Barry White, Barry Manilow, Stevie Wonder, John Lennon, David Bowie, all those characters, right? Okay, and he was absolutely great. If you heard his John Lennon, it was a great John Lennon. If you heard his Tom Jones and his Shirley Bassey, it was great. And what was brilliant is he'd come up through Clubland, which Clubland doesn't exist anymore properly now, you know. But he'd come up through that Clubland thing.
Working men's clubs and all that, wasn't it?
That all four of us will have at least known about, even if we've not really been in them that much. But you know, it was kind of Clubland was this thing where he'd been put on. His dad used to say he was from a Romany family, like a gypsy family. So they were a bit riotous if things went wrong, and they're like, you know, and his dad was known for, you know, if they were get paid off, you know, as the saying goes, or whatever, his dad would kick the shit out of somebody or whatever to make sure that it was all sorted out and the like. But Joe was just a great entertainer in his own right. He got involved in a few scrapes in his life. Don't get me wrong. He was earning £75,000 per programme in 1988 to 1991 on ITV primetime television at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock on a Saturday night.
That is a lot of money, isn't it, for that day, that time?
Absolutely right. You know, and he blew it all, not because he blew it all just on himself, but like a lot of musicians do. We all, in music, no matter what level we're at, and books, put our money back into what our art is. And so he wanted to take this big band on tour. So he would have, after that, 2 big coach loads of people on tour going around the Scarboroughs and the Blackpools of this world, but also the Brightons and the Torquays and everywhere. At the time when that was a thing.
We're all of that age where we probably remember programs like Seaside Special.
That's right.
Yeah. And he was that kind of...
There'll be some old footage around, won't there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there's loads.
I'm going to watch him.
Go on YouTube. Go on YouTube and put Joe Longthorne in and try and get the ones where it's back in the 80s. But even if you watch the ones where it's like 10 years ago, I can tell you 10 years ago when I was watching, when I was writing the book, that I went on tour with him. I went on tour with him for 1 year so that I interviewed him after gigs on a night because I thought that was the best time to get him to interview. And then also the year after, and then for several years after, I toured with him, and I did a 45 gig tour of the UK with him one year in about 9 or 10, 11 years ago now. And I went all around. I did the rock and roll lifestyle. I was kipping in my Land Rover on a night. You know, that's what the rock and roll lifestyle really is.
Yeah.
You know?
And what about Tony Christie? How did Tony Christie come about?
That one came back because it's the same company as Great Northern Books that were involved. And I'd interviewed Tony Christie for the Yorkshire Post as well as Joe. And it was a lot of years after, because it was only last year that it came out. But Tony came back because I'd done that. And I'd actually been over to do a story on him for the Yorkshire Post. And they'd told me, or his son, Sean, had told me that they'd already got somebody writing his autobiography. And I thought, fair enough, I'll leave it alone. I didn't see anything come up. And then a couple of years ago, I rang Sean, his son, and said, did you ever get that book out? And he said, oh, it's a sad tale. And I went, yes. And I went on it. And so that's how I ended up writing Tony's book. Very interesting story. Really good story as well, because he was big in the early to mid-70s. You know, I did what I did for Maria. Yeah. And then he did the song Amarillo that everybody knows now, but it wasn't a big hit when he first had it first time out. It was only when Peter Kay did it, that it really took off even more.
Yeah.
But he went abroad, you know, and was a big hit in Germany and Belgium and Switzerland and Austria, all those places. And if you watch again on YouTube, he sings what he calls Schlager music, right, over there. It's still all in English for him, but in their typical style for it. And he had a lot of hits when, you know, after the Hoff had been a big hit, you know, over in Germany for a while. Tony was the next guy to have the big hits after the Hoff right?
It's funny, somebody was on TV, I think it was this morning or yesterday, I forget who it was now, and they were saying that once you've made it in Germany, you've made it for life, because Germans love to go and watch you again and again and again. So, you know, once you've made it in Germany, you've got it your whole career.
Yeah.
Well, we ended up doing this in German as well as a result of that.
Wow.
So there's a German version of this as well. So there you go.
Brilliant.
So I'm printed in German as well. There you go.
Brilliant. So have you? I know, obviously, you've explained to us about Tough Season and the follow up to that. Have you got any more autobiographies in the pipeline, or biographies, I should say?
I've got one that's just come out, which is all about a guy in Yorkshire called Farmer Chris.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And he is a chap who's now on a show. Is it on here as well? Called Celebs on the Farm, right? And that starts on MTV this time on Monday next week, right? Okay, and it's all about celebrity. It's got people like Linda Robson from Birds.
So is that a biography, or is it more about
This is an autobiography of Chris, right? Who has had a very interesting life. And in fact, he read my Tough Season book. And then I'd known him for years. And he said, Chris, the way you've written it, I am Greg Duggan.
So how did you publish that, or did you get involved in the editing, or did you help him to write it, or what's the?
I wrote it for him.
Oh, you wrote it for him.
So that's what I do, as well as all the other things. I write people's books for them.
Right.
They used to call it ghosting.
Yeah.
But I always make sure my name is on the cover. So it has with Chris Berry. It's just part of what I do, you know. So
and are there any others in the pipeline?
I've got a few different ones, that are due out. I wrote a book called Boxter's Story, all about a bull. Would you believe it or not? For farming years ago. Now this and we're now doing the follow-up to that. It was a bull that was a champion bull at agricultural shows, and I don't know whether you know this. I won't go on too much, but this one was written about. This animal had won. It's called Boxter. Had won every show that he'd entered.
Wow.
10 years ago, right? Absolutely, he'd been the supreme champion in everything. Great Yorkshire show, Driffield show, right the way through Yorkshire, Lincolnshire show, the whole lot, undefeated. Now, cattle have to go through a thing called a bovine TB test. Don't know whether you know that, but it's in farming. It's all where Brian May from Queen, who likes badgers, believes that it's not the badger's fault, it's the, whatever, cattle's fault or whatever. But the cattle sort of side of it is such that Kate, who's pictured on here, was the farmer's daughter who showed Boxter. Right. And it's like a love story, like Free Willy or Flipper or something like that, because they took Defra to court over it, and they won in the High Court and were awarded £120,000.
Wow.
Right? Which just about covered what they'd spent in terms of actually having to face the thing.
Yeah.
And it's a great story that is well worth telling. And then she's just asked me, as Kate, to write what happened next. It's like what Katie did next, but what Boxter did next. And it's how they, as a result of it, her and her husband, developed a herd and developed their own farm at this old windmill that they got and the like. And it's a very interesting story.
Great.
So I do all sorts of things.
Different. So if anybody, obviously your two Tough Season books are out. Are all the sort of Joe Longthorne, etc., are they all still in print?
Yeah, they're all available as well.
So if anybody, go on.
The Joe Longthorne one has had 2 redos of the book since in paperback. And those 2 redos of it in paperback are both still available. The hardback, I've probably got about 4 copies left in my bookcase here, and that's it. There's no more available unless people buy them on eBay or whatever from people.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to get any of your books, have your Tough Season or your biographies, or any of your other books, how can they go about? Do you have your own website, or?
Yeah, just come to me on my Facebook page, Chris Berry. You'll find me easy enough. I'm always spouting on about Tough Season in the Sun at the moment. But also just go to chrisberry.tv, the website, and you can order it on there. You can order it either through Pay Me by Backs. I usually tell people, just send me a note on Facebook, and then I'll talk to you on, Messenger after that and give you the details so that you can do it. Other than that, you can just do it on thing. But you can also get it through Great Northern Books, or you can get it on Amazon as well. So, or any of the bookshops. I
don't know what Gary's doing. I don't know if he's stocking up the bar or what he's doing.
You still there, Gary?
Yeah, I'm here.
Come back. What are you doing?
You asked me too much there. He's off now. You weren't expecting me 2 hours.
Not yet. Right,
I'm going to have to go in 2 minutes as well.
Yeah,
I'm going to have to go as well.
We're going to wrap it up now. So, Gary, are you... have you sort of picked up the mantle from Chris in any way? Are you going to start writing, or have you
start writing?
Yeah,
I build. My writing is building.
Building what houses?
Sorry. My sort of writing, Joe, is building.
Yes. What, building houses, or
I build a lot of log cabins.
All right.
I built a lot of wooden buildings. My latest project is a rotational summer house. How about that?
Wow. Rotational.
Watch this space. I've got all the design. I've got it all made. I've got the wheels.
Great.
Got the chassis. Now I'm going upwards and watch it spin.
So it's on a motor, is it? It turns on. It turns.
Well, I've got a company in Manchester to bend me a circle of an angle.
Right.
And the wheels rest on the angle and rotate on the angle, obviously.
Yeah, great. So that keeps you busy.
Yeah, that's a bit of engineering for you, isn't it?
Yeah, isn't it, Just? That's great.
So that's the sort of thing I do.
Brilliant. But also, Gary and Tracy, you've got a great holiday place at their place, right? Go on, Gary.
Yeah, we do. We have a place called Cheeky Chicken Cottage. You're more than welcome to visit and come and stay once this all this bullshit's over with.
That's great. We're just about to wrap up. Were you going to show us something then, Gary?
I was trying to put something on for Chris. I will just one.
And we'll end with that.
Yeah, do that. Hold on. Bear with me. It just got a bit temperamental.
I don't know whether people are going to play back an hour and 3/4.
Live video, yeah. You're under pressure now, Gary. You're on live video and you're going on YouTube.
It's coming.
Is he winding it up?
It's coming.
So it's Christmas.
Right, well, just while Gary's getting ready, I will just have to let you all know. But obviously, you can find out more about us on the Montague Island Books Facebook page, and also the Bookends book club, which will get posted. I'll put the link in for that on the YouTube posting. Got over 500 members now. As regards the future weeks, after Chris tonight, we've got LM Kriya next week. Week after, we've got Diane Saxon. Then we've got Graham Smith, who writes on the name of John Ryder. Morgan Green, who's just got a book come out the last couple of days. He's with us on the 4th of March. Then Andre Roby is with us. Then John McKay, Heather Burnside, Emma Talon, and Paul Waters, which takes us up to after Easter. So any authors that would like to come on, let me know, and we can try and get you booked in for late April or May. But we've got quite a lot of interesting people coming up in the next few weeks as well. So
thanks for Andy and thanks for Gary for coming along tonight. Really
great. Thank you for coming as well, Chris. So are we ready, Gary? Before we finish,
are you ready for me now?
Go on.
I'm trying to put this beast on for Chris.
Go on then.
A jukebox.
Come on, you little monkey. Where are you? Oh, it's coming on. It's coming on.
Go on then.
Yes. Just for you, Chris. Yes. Good night, everyone.
Party time. We better not play too much of that, or else we'll get done for copyright. But a great way to end. Thanks very much for joining this evening, and I hope whoever watches it enjoys watching it all back and get some recommendations on books and albums.
Thanks,
and
Joe. Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Gary.
We'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.